Hi everyone, Dr. Janet McMordie here. Before we get to this week's episode, I want to tell you about another fabulous podcast called The Blaze Sessions, or TBS for short. The Blaze Sessions is our special quote-unquote sister podcast series that lives in the Firecracker Department feed. It's an ongoing pod series from the Firecracker Department that celebrates women and non-binary artists in the entertainment industry. Season 2 hosts are award-winning friends and actors Naomi Sinikas from Second City and Disney's Zombies, and Jennifer Podemski. Oh, I love her. Oh, I love Naomi too, obviously, from Little Bird and Empire of Dirt. Get real with fellow artists about their struggles and their successes and everything in between. You can find seasons 1 and 2 and the Firecracker Department main episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Why am I having such a hard time saying Firecracker? We can also watch the interviews on the Firecracker Department YouTube channel. Nailed it. Find us at Firecracker Dept. So that's at Firecracker DEPT on all social platforms. Like, comment, and subscribe for more, or visit www.firecrackerdepartment.com. So season 2 of this podcast, which launched in May, has a new episode every week, and we'll have 4 episodes. Confirmed guests include Jennifer Podemski, who I just talked about, who is wonderful, Kaylani Rose from Shoresy, Jessica Matten from Dark Winds, Tribal and Frontier, Tasha Hubbard from Singing Back the Buffalo, We Will Stand Up and Two Worlds Colliding, and Adeline Bird from The Spider and Never Trust a Stiff. I'm so excited for this season. So definitely go check them out and let me know what you think. And if you're a female, a woman identifying, or non-binary artist in the community, come join the Firecrackers. We are a lot of fun, and it's a great networking opportunity for all of y'all. Now, on with the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Dr. Sarah Boston. Sarah Boston is a veterinarian and stand-up comedian. I'm not going to say turn stand-up comedian because she still practices veterinary medicine. Her and I met in person physically at my live event, which was magical. But before then, we had never met in person. We had just connected online. She hosts a wonderful podcast called the Co-Medicine Podcast, all about people who, very similar to mine, which makes me so happy, all about people who are in the healthcare field, in the medical field, also doing stand-up comedy, acting, improv, etc., etc. I was very honored and privileged to be a guest on her podcast. It was so much fun. And her and I were just like, are we now best friends? And so I'm so happy that we got to now, I guess they call it a podcast swap. I was on her podcast. She was on mine. Oh, she's just an absolute joy. Please enjoy the incredible Dr. Sarah Boston. Morning routine of like Instagram and coffee, and I always forget because I use Canva to schedule my posts.
Yeah. Oh.
And I totally forgot today's my podcast second's birthday. I totally forgot. Yeah, and then it like popped up on my Instagram and I was like, oh shit, it's March 4th.
The Ides of March
podcast.
Happy birthday podcast. Congratulations.
It's 2 years old.
That's amazing. And you've done 100 and some.
111 episodes have aired, so 112 will be this Friday. I've recorded probably, like, I like to like batch record them. Because this time of year is pretty slow for acting and like, busy for the medical side of things. But so I've recorded probably about 130. Like, they're in the bank.
Yeah, I do the same. I laughed when you were saying and said, when is it going to be out? I'm like, I do the exact same thing, and I've gotten ahead. I've almost gotten too ahead of myself. Like with yours, you were like, I'm going to be at the Pan Ams in December, and I was like, we got to cut out December, because I was like, but it's, I worry, and also like I'm just hitting such a niche. Like I'm in this little, and I'm getting stressed because I've recorded 3 from season 3, but I don't know if you found this, is like men love being on podcasts.
Oh my God.
Women don't. I don't know what's going on. I am like,
It's
especially if you're doing a comedy podcast. Like,
totally. And it's interesting because the women I talk to, and this obviously is hugely like gendered, and there are women who are super proud of themselves and stuff, but the women I talk to who I try to convince to be on my podcast because they are absolute perfection and wonderful humans are like, I don't have anything to say.
Oh,
and
no.
then they come onto my show and spew an hour of pure gold. And I'm like, what? And then I click stop and they go, oh God, I was just rambling and I don't know if I said anything. And then I kid you not, I sent it to one female actress. I was like, do you want to hear the unedited podcast? She's like, yes, absolutely. I want to make sure there's nothing I said that was like going to get me canceled or God knows whatever. I'm like, for sure, easy. And I sent it to her and she's like, oh my God, I actually sound like kind of smart. Like, oh, I'm like, yes, you do, because you are, because you have an incredible story. And then I get men coming on my show who are like, yeah, hell yeah, let's talk. Hell yeah, my life is great. And I'm like, it is. You're right.
It's totally a thing. Yeah, it's totally a thing. And I'm like, I refuse to have my podcast be like, here's all men.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was looking at like my year, I tried to like intersperse like men, women, med, women, non-binary, however people identify. And I've slowly stopped because I was realizing for a while, it was a ton of men in a row. And I was like, where are all the women? But now they're coming out of the woodwork. I have female identifying for like a while, and I had to like insert one of my like male identifying guests because I was like, oh man, this is all the ladies.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, that's my challenge for season 3. And I have some amazing women, and I think they're just too busy. Like,
this is also the thing. And we could talk about the patriarchy and how, you know, if women start becoming proud of their accomplishments, that scares the world. And also we do so much because things fall to us a lot of the time.
Yep. Yep. It's very interesting because, men are way easier to get on my podcast. They're like, yep. And they're just like, and then a couple of them, I shouldn't be like, but they're just like, I get on and they're just like, it's like show and tell. They're like, look at this I did, and I did this thing, and I did this, and I'm like, it's audio, dude. Like, I don't know what's happening. Oh, maybe you should cut that out. Oops. Oh, well. Anyway. Hopefully they won't cross listen, but it's very, it's good. It's just to me, I'm like, I don't think a woman would ever do that.
No, it's interesting. And I think, there's lots of reasons why that's the case. And I think a lot of it has to do with, ingrained sense of, let me know what you think about this. Ingrained sense of, I can't promote myself too much because there's this like innate sense of like, if I do, I'm more visible. And there's like a deep down feeling of lack of safety. And that's what I kind of was thinking about. I think about that with like my medical practice as well too, like what we were talking about before I hit record about, patients are learning too much about my personal life. I don't feel safe because there have been incidences of, stalking in the medical community, stalking in the entertainment industry. I think, and it's proportionally more, towards the victim being female.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there's like this ingrained sense of I can't be too open about things. Where men, the more public they get, the glitterier and shinier they are to society, where women are exposed to immense scrutiny when that's the case.
Yeah, no, I always think that people post on Instagram, like stand-ups will be like, these are all my shows. Here's how to stalk me.
Right.
Walking to my car by myself.
Yeah, in the nighttime from Comedy Bar Danforth, right? Like,
I park in this underground parking lot. Like,
I drive this Ford Taurus.
I'll put my shows because I like to do that, but I don't usually put like it all in. I'm not criticizing anyone who does, but it always strikes me when people put it all in one like cute little post. I'm like, that's just. That's making it very easy for your stalker that they can find you. Yeah, so maybe there is an element of that. I also think like some of the people I'm trying to get on, they're like, they're a mother, they're working full time as their one job, they're also a comedian, and they literally they want to be on. I think I might be harassing them, but I think they just are like they can't find an hour in their day. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's very interesting.
It is really interesting. I think you could do an entire PhD thesis on why this is the case.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, you know, I get on my soapbox about the patriarchy all the time on this podcast, but
Sorry,
I can't.
I was my fault.
No, it's my podcast. I can do what I want. Right?
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Yeah, for sure. But
it is really interesting, I think, especially, well, as soon as you become a public figure, and doesn't matter how major a public figure you are, you can be the teensiest little one, you know, you are exposing yourself to scrutiny, and then you are exposing yourself to people saying, well, you kind of asked for it by becoming a front-facing member of society. And you're like,
yeah,
great.
Oh, did I ask for it?
Interesting. Did I ask for it? Right? Like,
I don't remember asking for it, really. But
I know. Yeah, it's interesting. And it's funny because I think about so often, and this doesn't happen as much anymore as when I was first starting my practice, but, you know, every so often you'd get some, usually male, patient say, like, oh, I'm demanding this test, this test, this test. And then I was like, okay, it's not reasonable. It's not indicated. And they'd say, well, I pay your salary.
Wow.
Because I'm technically a government employee, right? Tax dollars pay for doctors' salaries. And you're like, I don't really know how to respond to that, because technically that is true. But then that opens up a whole slew of problems.
Yeah.
Right? When you're like, yes, but you have zero education about what this is. Right? So,
and they're not the boss of you. And veterinary medicine's even more slippery because they're literally paying, right? They're literally paying. But I recently, these were amazing clients, wonderful people who really just were scared about their dog. And they're like, we want a whole body CT for their dog. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so I could make money off that. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. I was like, because it wasn't indicated. And I'm like, you're exposing your dog to radiation. It's $3,000. It's not indicated. And I found them another test. There's like a really cool test that you can just like screen for, it's called a liquid biopsy. And you can just screen for cancer with that. And I was like, we'll do this test. You can do it as often as you want if you're really scared, but we're not just going to do a whole body CT on your dog just because you can afford to do it. It's not right for your dog. And then they were cool. Like, they were good. I said, look, I'll do it if you really want me to. But generally speaking, I love that when clients still come to me, I'll be like, here's your 3 options. And then they come out with 4. And I'm like, where did 4 come from? I never talked about 4. And there's a reason, because I don't want to do 4. 4 is not, we're not doing 4, you know, but they'll come back to me. They're like, why don't we do this? I'm like, there's a reason I never, ever even thought of that, actually. So yeah, occasionally I will go with it and like go down that and be like, should I offer this? Because I do cancer treatment and sometimes we have to get outside the box and use creativity. And so I will listen to them. But usually I'm like, no, it just comes out of left field and you're like, no. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head there and about fear, right? When I think about anger, right? Anger being kind of secondary emotion, you know, nobody's ever just angry to be angry, right? So it's usually a triggered response to another deep-seated feeling, usually being scared, right?
Yeah.
And the anger comes out because, you know, they are terrified of something. But like, again, we could talk about the patriarchy here. You know, men in society are not allowed to show vulnerability and fear. So instead, they're like, I am going to be angry the fact that I don't know the answer to this. And I'm scared because I don't know.
Oh, it's fine. I call it sad mad when we have clients that are mad.
Sad mad.
I go, oh, he's just sad mad.
That's nice. When you put a label on something, it definitely, you're like, this makes it kind of like a little bit more whimsical and easier to like,
he's
handle.
Just sad mad. Yeah, like I know he's yelling. Mad. I know he's yelling at me, but I think he's sad mad. Yeah.
Because it always goes over so well. Again, when you're like, oh, big emotions, buddy.
I haven't tried that. Usually, actually, it just happened. It wasn't a man. It was a woman who just got really, as a case, it wasn't going well. Like, it was a difficult case, but she got really, like, snippety snip with me. And, like, it was not called for, but she was sad mad, I think, too. So she got sad mad. And I was like, I answered her question. I was like, do you have any other concerns? She's like, nah. And then I just went, okay. And then I left because I got someone else to let them visit their dog because I was like, I need a break. Yes. I need a break from the sad mad people because it's just like it wasn't fair what they were saying. So I was just like, I'm gonna go over there and sit by my desk for a bit. they're gonna like let you visit your pet. And yeah.
It's so draining. And I think we can, in our training, we're taught how to deal with these people. But I think we do such a disservice to the healthcare providers, not reminding us of how hard it is to deal with these people, right?
Yeah.
Like how to empathize and not get mad right back. It takes so much more effort to be the, quote, bigger person, to be the professional, when everything in you is like, buddy, come on, calm down, grow up. Like, you're not helping anyone, and you're making a fool of yourself, and you're making me feel like crap. You're like, no, I must rise above.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had no training. They have training now. I had no training because I went to school too long ago. So zero, like nothing, zero, nothing.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, now you kind of get it, but now like wellness is a thing and communication is a thing. I'm like, oh, that wasn't a thing when I went to school.
Not a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think, and we see this in medical providers who have more great wiseness and maturity than the people coming out of medical school, who can get into that trap of back in my day, we never talked about physician wellness and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yep. And this is why all your colleagues are quitting and burning out. It's not sustainable.
Or worse. I mean, let's be honest.
Worse, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Your
I definitely wasn't doing that. It was just like, I mean, things have changed so much since I became a veterinarian, because it used to just be, we would say, like, the things that, the terminology, we'd be like, oh, they cracked. Like, people would say that. I mean, it's wild. But yeah, there was no mental health stuff, no wellness, no communication. Like, you were just kind of like, and you better suck it up. And this is what you chose. And that's how it is. And it was like, wow. Because even I just had a rough week. I'll be honest. This week was rough. And I sometimes am like, on Saturday morning, I said to my husband, I was like, I feel like I can't take anymore. Like, I need a little break from the week I'm having. Like, things were just piling up. Yeah. And I'm very experienced. I've been doing this for a really long time, but yeah, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad we're actually talking about it now. Yay.
It's hard because we talk so much, and I feel like I've been talking about this a lot lately, about pendulum swings through the generations, right? And I think, like, we swung the pendulum so far, like, in the histories of medicine and veterinary medicine, where it's all about, suck it up. You chose this. Oh, so-and-so over there cracked, right? The pendulum is so far this way, with not talking about it at all. Now I am a bit worried we've swung too far.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, I'm worried that we're too soft now, and we're letting people, and this is going to sound bad, like, get away with some things. And also, they're not developing the resilience that does need to come in a compassion front, public facing career. Like, I think we've gone too far, and I think there's too much of a culture of is that like a culture of like pansy kindness, where nobody can even constructively criticize someone.
Yeah.
I think so much of my medical training that I remember and I loved was constructive criticism, where now I fear that, like, if that same criticism was to be given to a trainee, they would, like, try and cancel their mentor and, like, burst into tears and not be able to handle it. When you need to this is how you learn.
Yeah, I actually, okay, well, I'm going to sound like an old fart, but this is going to be controversial on the podcast. So I'm a specialist and I work at an emergency facility, and so I see a lot of, like, you just see a lot of cases that come in. And I would even take it one further. Like, when I go to big conferences, everyone's in the communication room. Everyone's in the wellness room. That's where everyone wants to be. That's a fun lecture. It's entertaining. It's cool. People that lecture about that are cool. The oncology room, not that full. And I am like, I have been seeing some cases lately that I'm like, oh, that, and I'm like, we still are doctors. Like, at the end of the day, We're still doctors. It's still hard. It's still medicine. You have to know that stuff. You have to. And then there's the other stuff. So like, I actually couldn't agree with you more that the pendulum has swung so far that there's some things that are happening that I'm like, that just shouldn't happen. That shouldn't have happened. That choice, that decision, that's someone's pet. They're spending a lot of money. We do kind of have to be doctors first. Yep. And then the other stuff's also super important. And then I guess the question is like, how do you like fit that all together so that you can be a really good doctor, but not totally burn yourself out or be such a perfectionist or be beating yourself up all the time? I don't have the answer. I think working less is part of the answer though, actually.
Yeah, I think it is too. And I think the big thing that we're seeing, at least in medicine, is like, when do I have the most success with my patients? And it's when I have time to be with my patients, which now the number one reason for physician burnout, and I'm sure it's the same with vets, is administration, right? Like the amount of paperwork unpaid that we have to do is insane. The amount that it's gone up in the last 10 years of ridiculous paperwork makes the job not fun. When I have fun and when I enjoy and have the ability to counsel and provide doctor advice is when I have the time paid, because I have staff to pay for, when I can sit with my patient and have a conversation about the risks and benefits of all these options available to them. And they can make an educated choice with a provider, me, that they hopefully trust.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen right now because we don't get paid for that.
Right.
Like, sorry, I hate to say this, but like, I can't do stuff for free because I have to make a living and I have to pay for my staff's living.
Yeah.
5 Ontario residents depend on me.
Who are trying to live in Ontario.
I can't do it for free, but I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we get the extra layer of people because they just directly are. Yes. So much, it's just direct, right? And so we get the extra layers, veterinarians, of like, you should do it for free. If you loved animals, you do it for free. It's like, okay. I've been a veterinarian. I've wanted to do this since I was 6. Like, I don't need to justify that I love animals. They're my whole life. Like, I love animals so much. So, but it just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. That would be the best job ever. Like if I could work somewhere that everything was free and I could just do what I wanted. I mean, when the closest we get is when people have insurance.
Yes.
It's not free, but it's like that stress is sort of out of the room and we just talk about medicine and what we're going to do and they make a decision. They treat, they don't treat, but it's not a financial decision. But yeah, it's interesting because it's like, it's still those same problems, I think, in the human side, but it's just different layers or different, Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting because there is an interesting tie-in, and I think about everyone who has a skill, right? A skilled trade, which I will put medicine, veterinary medicine, acting, artists, plumbers, HVAC workers, everything, my mechanic, these skilled traits that people witness in society saying, oh, you can fix my car. You can do, like, there's a weird brain funk that people get in that say, can you do that for me for free? And I know I've definitely gotten in that like guilt space of like, one of my best friends, her husband's a plumber. Can you come and fix my whatever? And it's like, why would I offer medical advice for free? Like, I don't know. It's a weird, my lawyer, people's lawyers like, well, can you just give me free legal advice? Free accounting? I'm trying to think, is there a career out there that people don't automatically think you should just do this for free?
Yeah.
It's
we
weird.
get it. We definitely get it all the time. And it's weird the more accessible we are, because I get like, I don't know, like I'll get a Facebook message and then I'll get an email. Oh, hey, and I'm just like, and the weird thing is, these are people that they're not even in the same town as me. I haven't seen them for years. And I'm like, my advice is go to a veterinarian. Like, what am I going to do? Like, from here, or they want to know if their veterinarian's ripping them off or what. I mean, I don't know. I'm just like, I have no idea. I really have no idea. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how people do ask. Maybe I think, people wouldn't do that with doctors. They just do it with us.
Oh God, every time.
Really? Okay.
I'm at like Costco and they're like, oh, Dr. McMordie, can you look at this rash? I'm like, no, I'm a sports doctor. Like the only rash I know is like athlete's foot and like, okay. Or like people with their kids. And like, you want to help them because like, I'm not like I'm a nice person, you know. I get texts from people who have children, like my godson, right? Like he's got a fever. What do I do? I'm like, I haven't touched like a pediatric human except for like, you know, he broke his arm skiing.
Right.
I don't know what to do with a fever. I don't know. Go to Emerge.
No.
And they're like, oh, that's gonna be such a waste of my time. I'm like, but I don't know.
What are you like? What if the kid has meningitis and you're like, it's fine. That's fine. Yeah. That's
the world we live in.
It is.
Doesn't it make you want to go and like be a data entry person? Just sit on the computer and just put numbers into Excel.
Yeah. And then no one would ever ask you what you did.
Doesn't bother me. Yeah. Okay, well, that being said, how did you get into, I know you were saying you wanted to be a vet since you were 6. So I want to know about that piece, and then tell me about what made you get into comedy as well.
Okay. Oh, it's okay. So yeah, I was the kid who was going to be a vet, but I actually have a very artistic family and who, you know, wrote plays, and my brother's quite artistic, like just kind of that. He's like a philosophy PhD. So there was that side of my family always, that theatrical side. And I definitely participated in some of that, but I was the science one, like, cause I was going to be the vet. So it was there. I participated a bit, you know, but like you have to get good marks to get into vet school, and I was going to be that. So that is the path I got on. And then I just got on it and then literally didn't get off it. Like vet school, internship, surgery residency, fellowship in surgical oncology, faculty, tenured faculty. I was just on the path, right? So as a faculty member, as someone who was lecturing, I always had jokes in my lectures. Like I just, I had that performative side, was criticized for that as a resident, that you shouldn't have jokes in your lectures. Totally disagree. Disagreed then, still disagree, because I think it makes the lecture more interesting and engaging if you have stories and emotion and jokes or whatever you want. So, but anyway, I was just kind of doing my thing. I would say a bit of a catalyst was I was diagnosed myself with thyroid cancer. And kind of went through that process, and some of the frustrations of our Canadian healthcare system of just like, I ultrasounded my neck. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a thyroid carcinoma. Like, cause I've seen a million of them in dogs. And I was like, that's what that is. And then just trying to get through the system, have people not think you're like a hysterical woman, hypochondriac, you know, it's probably not cancer. I was like, it kind of is. Like, I don't know what that looks like. Anyway, so through that process, I guess I can thank the Canadian healthcare system, because I was going through it so slowly. And I was like, I have friends. I'm blessed that I have friends all over the world. But when that happens, you try to keep people up to date with what's going on. So I started just writing, like, it was almost like a blog, like, here's what's going on with Sarah and Sarah's thing in her neck, you know. But of course I have to make it funny because it's absurd and I'm frustrated and I have to make myself laugh. I have to make it funny. So I ended up with like a thing. I don't even know. I was like, I don't know what this is. You know, it was just about what was happening, but it was funny. And then ended up having a chance meeting with an author. We were raising money for our cancer center at University of Guelph, and I was faculty there. Had no idea who he was. Super nice guy. Turns out to be Noah Richler. He's like super famous. I was really happy I didn't know who he was though before, because I was just talking about writing. I'm like, oh, this guy Noah, he's nice. He's a nice man. Like later he's like, I was like, what's your last name? He's like, Richler. I was like, oh, you're kind of okay. And anyway, I read some of what I'd written, and then he got me in touch. His wife at the time was the president of House of Vignettes. Ended up totally lucky. Like, yeah, this infuriates people who I think want to write a book, but I was like, oh, I didn't have an agent. I just met a guy. Yeah, I don't know. I think you've had similar experiences, you know, just sometimes things just right time, right place, things work out. I think it's luck and being prepared for luck in a way, like it, you know. Anyway, published a book in 2014. It's called Lucky Dog. It's about treating animals with cancer, having thyroid cancer, yet funny. And I realized I was like, oh, I like humor writing. I like comedy. And then I was like, I went on a book tour. I got to be on TV. I was like, oh, me liking that. Like that is very fun. How do I do more of that? And I just trying to like figure that all out. And then I just started taking comedy writing classes. I lived in Florida at the time, in Gainesville. Culture there, I'll be honest. So a lot of football, a lot of guns, a lot of God, but not a lot of, culture. So I was taking online Second City classes, which before that was like, it was like way before the pandemic. It was kind of weird to do that, but I did that. And then I moved back to Canada, and then I sort of discovered stand-up at the Second City in a class. I didn't even know that you could do a class in that, but I'm such a nerd. Like, if there's a class, I'm gonna do the class. Like, and then I started doing stand-up, and I love stand-up. Like, I just was like, oh, I love this. Like, I love improv a lot. I love acting, but there's just something about stand-up that I'm just like, I love this. And then, during the pandemic, I was like, my husband came home a day. I'm like, there's a program at Humber College called Comedy Performance and Writing, and I think I'm going to apply for it. And he was just like, but I don't know. Sorry, that was like a big long answer, but I just decided to go for it because I was like, at the time I would say I was in a job. I loved what I was doing. I didn't love where I was doing it. I felt a bit stuck in place because of the pandemic. I was like, not a good time to like make big moves. Like, we were in the same province as all of our parents, and it was just kind of a time where you just didn't really know what was going to happen. So I was like, I need to have an Ontario-based thing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that because I can do that here. So I went to Humber College for 2 years. I finished at the spring 2023. And now I'm trying to like put it all together. But that's kind of was my path. It was honestly like thyroid cancer, writing, comedy, stand-up, Humber, and then like, okay, still working as a veterinary surgeon during school. And then now I'm like, okay, how do I put this all together? So
what is stand-up that you like so much? Because, and I'm saying this, my question is mainly because I hear from a lot of actors, or myself personally, who I love improv, there is a complete abject terror of doing stand-up because it's so solitary. What are your thoughts on that, and why stand-up?
Well, I think it's interesting that improv and stand-up, like, traditionally they're almost like separate, and like, improv people make fun of the stand-ups and the stand-ups are fun of improv. In my mind, they're the same. Like, they're very similar in acting. Like, they're all kind of, it's like a big Venn diagram, but like like improv makes you better at stand-up. And I think stand-up probably makes you better at improv. Like, they feed each other, and acting is the same thing. If you're good at improvising, you'll be better at acting. Probably if you're better at acting, you'll be better at improvising. Like, so I think they're all like, to me, they're interrelated crafts. Like, they're not so separate. I don't know. For stand-up, I don't know, this might be not bad thing about me, but I might like that it's solitary because I'm busy, right? So I'm just kind of like, oh, I can do this thing, and I don't have to like rehearse with people or coordinate. Like, because I can't. It's not that I don't want to. I'd love to be in a play. I've always looked at that. I'm like, I would love to be in a play. And I'm like, I would never make it to rehearsal. Everyone would hate me, like, I don't know. Like, even I just did another improv, like, just to kind of keep up my improv skills. I missed our show at the end because I got stuck at work. Like, and that kind of sucked. Like, they knew the whole time that I may not make it because it was like it was like we met on Tuesdays and then our show was on Friday. So even from as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, I work on Fridays. Like, I was like, I was going to make it. Like, between 3 and 4 o'clock, I was there. Like, I was like, oh, everything was just like it was like, I don't know, the skies were partying. I was like, I think I'm going to make it to my improv show. Like, I didn't text anyone. I was just like, I think I'm going to make it. And in one case, not doing well, and I couldn't leave. And that's how it is. It's fine. But then I kind of felt like I let those people down, Whereas if it's stand-up, you let yourself down, or it's just you. So I don't know if that's what I like. I love the connection to the crowd. I definitely did not love stand-up over Zoom during the pandemic. It's not the same. It's different. It's a different thing. Some people are really good at it. They liked it. I think it connected some people, which is super cool. Like, people that were quite isolated or even in different cities, and it connected them. I just never didn't find that, and I didn't find it fun, and I felt like I was just talking to myself. And so I didn't do a lot of stand-up during that period just because of that. Cause I was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And same with lecturing. I did lecturing at cause I lecture at veterinary conferences over Zoom. I was like, oh, I also hate that. And watching lectures over Zoom, hate that too.
Yeah.
This I'm enjoying. Yay. I just thought I should clarify, but this is different. I don't know. It's different. Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting that I've been thinking about that a lot, about the whole, like, acting is something that you truly can't do alone, right? Like, exactly what you just said. I mean, I guess you could say, like, a soliloquy from Shakespeare you are doing technically alone, a monologue technically alone. But yeah, a lot of the things, like, you do need the help of others, like, especially in improv, which I think is why, a lot of people gravitate towards that, missing that community and that connection. Where it's interesting because I think, like, you could think of stand up as being so solitary and like, oh, I'm just here alone. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I've never done stand-up before, but I've seen so many stand-up comedy shows. You truly, yeah, sure, you're alone on the stage there, but so much of it is that connection with the audience, and that you're so interactive, because then you're not doing a soliloquy. You're not. You're interacting with your audience.
Yeah, you definitely feel their energy. And this is something else, because, I don't know what I am. I don't know when you call yourself a professional or whatever, but when I'm in a room of, like, if I'm doing stand up for, like, a big room of people, like, it's packed, that's so much easier than if there's, like, 30 people.
Huh.
If they're all shoved together and then they just become this, like, I don't know, then they are a character, or they are something that you're bouncing off of and you're connecting with. Whereas if it's all these separate people and they're not even sitting close to each other, and they're not, like, they don't want to laugh too loud because, like, there's, people will hear them. Whereas if there's, like, 200 people, doesn't matter what, you could yell stuff out and sometimes you wouldn't even hear that. So I don't know. It's easier to play a room as a stand-up that is, like, packed. You get better laughs. You can feel like you killed. Whereas if there's 30 people, it's way harder. But I've been trying to, because I do the Rising Stars at Yuck Yucks in Toronto, which is on Wednesday nights. Cool. It's not packed, I'll tell you that. If anyone wants to come, I'll be there. But I've actually just thought, well, instead of, because I think it is an impulse to be like, this audience sucks. Like, they're not laughing. They don't get my jokes. I'm like, well, that's on you. Like, that's on me if they're not, like. And so I've been trying to, I heard, actually, I think it was on Pete Holmes' podcast, and I can't remember who said it, but anyway, or maybe Pete Holmes was on Mike Birbiglia's podcast or the Good Ones podcast. I can't remember, but they were talking about the best comedian. It must have been the Good One podcast. And they said John Mulaney, but John Mulaney on a Tuesday when there's 25 people there, because he is so skilled that he can make that one group, and he can, like, play with them. I mean, he can do a theater of 3,000 people. Of course he can. He's John Mulaney, but he can also do this tiny room where no one's sitting together and it's kind of a lame Tuesday. He can do that. And I was like, oh, I need to try to figure that out. Like, so it's totally changed how I think about it. I'm like, I will never say, oh, this audience sucks, or they're quiet, or, of course they're quiet. There's only 25 people. That's more quiet than 250 people. Mm-hmm. But the challenge is, like, how do I, like, connect with them and relate with them? And I'm not saying I'm good at it or not, but I'm like, now I'm just like, instead of being sad that there's not that many people there, I'm like, oh, no, this is good. This is good for me. It's good practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find your training, your vet training, has it helped you in stand-up in any way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a nerd in all, like, I went to school, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to college because I want to do stand-up. So, like, who does that? Nerds do that. I think
present. Hello. Yeah.
Stand-up is work. Like, if you look at any of the big A-list stand-up comedians, like, I know they look like they're just riffing, and they are so not. Like, they have worked so hard. That's like, and I know I'd laugh because there's a lot of comedians that people are like, oh, they just broke through. I'm like, no, they didn't. They've been doing that for 8 years. They have worked hard. They are, like, every joke is, like, they tinker with every single joke, and they're taking notes, and they're, and they're not, like, well, I shouldn't say they're really focused on that. It's their job. Like they are focused like it's a job. And so I think just going through veterinary school and internship and residency and fellowship, like you just kind of take that with you, whatever thing you're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. Like it just, you kind of bring it with you that it's work. And I thrive in the school environment, the structure, homework, like bring it on. So yeah, I mean, I think that just the work ethic, I would say, like is just ingrained in you. And I don't think people think you're just a clown person, but stand-up is like, it's work, right? Acting is work. Like you can't just show up late and be drunk and be like, you can't, it's a job. Like it's a job. If you want to be successful, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but the people that are successful, they're focused, right? If you look at actors that are really successful or stand-ups that are really successful, they are very focused on what they're doing.
When you started doing more stand-up, was there anything that surprised you about getting into that industry?
It's a tough industry. I probably knew that. I think there is like, you just think you're just gonna like, you know, like people say you're good or you think you're good, but then you look back at what was good, what you thought was good 4 years ago. And then you're like, oh, like look back at those tapes and you're like, oh my God, that setup is a minute long. Like, what was I thinking, you know? Or you just keep learning and you keep progressing. And so then you kind of are looking back and you're like, okay, so now I'm just like, as long as I feel like I'm progressing, like I don't try to look at how good I am or where I'm getting. I think it's a hard industry because everyone's kind of looking at each other and what they get. And I try not to do that. I can't say I don't do that, but I try not to do that because it's just like, well, they're a 27-year-old guy. Like their audience is different. It doesn't matter. I hope they do great. Like, I don't really care. They're not really doing what I'm doing. Like, so I've been trying to stay in my lane and just think like, who's my audience? What am I doing comedy for? Who are my jokes for? And hope that the audience finds me. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's like I'm a lot older. I'm a woman. So like I'm different than the comics that are there. I think I just try not to let it. I'm just like, okay, well, like I'm there to be friendly, but I don't have a clique of my comedy peeps. Like I probably hope I would if I was younger. And I think I would love to have that, but there's just not like a whole bunch of middle-aged ladies that are doing this. There's a few, but there's not like yet. Yeah. It's not like a gang of, and also like, I don't know, I have this hilarious, like, I mean, my classmates were lovely, all very much younger than me, but like we would go to our Yuck Yuck show. We had a Humber Yuck Yuck show and like I'm working the next morning, right? So I'm getting up at 6. Yep. The show ends at 9:30. I got to go home. I got to like walk my dog and then I got to get up at 6 to go do surgery. Not that I'm not trying to sound like I'm more important than anyone, but that's just was my life because I was kind of doing both through school. And so when they asked me, they didn't always ask me, but when they asked me, they'd be like, hey, Sarah, what are you doing after? I'm like, this is after. There's no after. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I gotta go. Like, and sometimes I just go. And like, yeah. One time I made the mistake of stopping to say goodbye because sometimes I would just run out. I just gotta like run to my car, go home as quickly as I could. And I stopped and then they were talking about something. This is a random story. I love it. They were talking about something and then like, I don't expect to be invited to anything. Like, I'm just like, what? I'm just happy to be here. I don't really care. I have friends. Like, I'm good. I did not go to Humber to like suddenly have a group of 25-year-olds to be friends with. You know what I mean? Like I would have had children if I'm fine. Like it's all good. I'm not going to go to parties with them. You know, that would be insane. Anyway, they were talking about something. And then one of the guys there is super friendly, lovely guy. He's like, hey, Sarah. And he wanted to tell me something. And someone else in the group, okay, she was being a little catty. She goes, oh, don't tell her. And I was like, okay, like, again, don't care. And then I was like, oh, it's okay. And then the guy was like, oh, we're going to do mushrooms together one night. And I was like, okay, I did those like, I'm good. Like I did those before you were born. I wouldn't do them now because I'd be too scared that they were laced with stuff. Like, honestly, like I am not doing mushrooms until I can buy them from a pharmacist or there's a government label on them. And then I'll be happy to do mushrooms again. But no. And I just kind of went, okay, great. Like, I'm totally fine with not being invited because if you invited me, I'd have to say no because you're not the group of people I would do mushrooms with. Like, anyway.
I'm gonna wonder if you're like, oh no, is the catty girl being like, no, she's like our moms, like
I don't know,
gonna get us in trouble.
I don't know no, I think she just didn't want me there. Which is fine. I don't care. Like, that's the thing, is I don't care. And the funny thing was, I stopped to say goodbye to be nice.
Yeah.
Like I was like, gotta go. And then I was like, oh, whatever that socialized thing is to be nice. I stopped to be nice. And then the thanks I got was like being not invited to a mushroom party that I didn't want to go to.
It's so interesting, I think, because, and I'm kind of alluding to a lot of sensations that I feel kind of starting into this more whimsical career path later on in life. And I agree with you. I get caught in that weird sense of like, oh, you know, I don't get invited to parties. But you know, I'm not going to go for a hypothetical drink with classmates after a class because, again, like you're saying, it's not like I'm any more important than you, but like you're a 20-something who is living with 50 roommates and trying to forge this creative dream that you have. God freaking bless you. But you're right. I have to get up and I have to go work my day job tomorrow. And I think like I see both sides, right? And we hear both sides of people saying, you must commit to this craft and commit to the craft of stand-up only. Otherwise, everything else, you're not going to be able to do it. But the other side of my brain, the logical smart side, says, yeah, commit to your craft of what you enjoy, improv, stand-up, this podcast, whatever. But do the day job. Yeah, I genuinely love parts of it, but also to rid yourself of the desperation of needing the craft that I love to provide me with sustenance.
Yeah, I have the same struggle. Yeah, I have the same struggle. And I think also, like, I'm like you. Like, I love being a veterinary surgeon. Like, I didn't this week. I loved it less this week.
Allowed, right?
But in general, if you said, well, you can't do that anymore, I'm like, it'd be like cutting off my arm. Like it's me, it's who I am. It's my identity. It's what I love. I get to hang out with dogs all day. Like, it's cool. It's really cool. And most of those dogs people love them. So they're really nice dogs, and some cats, mostly dogs. So yeah, I don't want to stop, but I think I'm like, am I just going to be mediocre at two things now? Like, you know what I mean? Cause I feel like, am I losing my edge as a veterinarian? Cause I'm not doing it full time. And now I'm like, okay, I'm doing okay, but I'm at Toronto, like I'm at the Rising Stars, which is not even as good as it sounds. It doesn't even sound that good. That's what I'm doing. I do some shows and I'm, trying to get better at stand-up. Yeah, I don't know. Like, that is a real struggle for me because I'm not an academic anymore. I'm in private practice. So I don't have that cachet of like, I'm a tenured faculty, which I always was. And now I'm not. And then my colleagues are like, oh, Sarah's like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough because I used to go to conferences to speak. I still do. I mean, but the last big conference I went to, I went in the talent show and I did stand up. And so that did my head in because I was like, I just came to a conference to do stand-up comedy. Now, I came in second, which is, I think, like, it's kind of like first for stand-up. Like, because it was like America's Got Talent. It was like very much, it was the biggest vet conference in the world. It was super fun. I have no regrets about going. And I came in second. The girl who won was this incredible singer that just kind of like blew the roof off with her song. She's 22. I was like, you need to rethink your career. Like, you need to go do that. So I was like, yeah, but I felt like I won because I came in second to her. So I was like, it's all good. Stand-ups never win a talent show. Come on. That would never happen.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, weird feeling. And I think it's society that puts it on us, right? Saying you must be good at one thing and one thing only. Like, in what world does being good at two things mean that, like, you've now eaten two pieces of pie and there's two pieces of pie less? Like, it's like, that's not how talent gets divided, right? It's not like like, there's only a finite amount of excellence that you can have in your life. And you can only be excellent at one thing. Or you can be mediocre at two things. Or you can be kind of okay at four things. Or you can be, like, kind of shitty at 8 things. What do you want to do with your life? Pick one of those. It's just such a weird thing. And I think about, like, again, you can get all spiritual and wooey about like, when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to look back and be like, damn, I was really good at one thing and one thing only. I'm sure there are people out there who are fabulous, but that's not me. And I'm not mediocre at two things because I'm an academic nerd like you. I'm going to be good at everything.
All the things. Yeah. Well, no, it's just, I think that fear plagues me, and like, I don't know where it is all, but I just think it's just like, I don't know, like, because there's only so much time. Like, that's the other thing, right? Yeah. Like, there's only so much time, because I heard this quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger, because apparently he used to like work in construction when he first came to America, and then he would work out 5 hours a day because he was going to be Mr. America, right? And so he, I don't know, this is a quote I heard from him, that you can only sleep 6 hours a night. I'm sorry, Arnold, that does not work for me. No. I need 8. And he's like, he said something like, sleep faster. Like you only need 6 hours, sleep faster. And I thought that was so funny. I can't, like, I can't do that. So like, then you got to divide your day. I don't have kids. I have a dog. I think at this point he takes up more of my time than a child would, because he's needy. And then I'm married, which is, I have a wonderful husband, but you have to nurture your relationships. You can't just, so then it's like, I don't know. I'm struggling with that question, but I'm kind of focused on two things. Work, but I don't work full time. I work 60%, and then doing comedy and stand up and that whole kind of creative side, I guess. Yeah.
Favorite moments from your time in stand up?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think. A couple times I've been in a theater, I do think I'm like, oh, I like being in a theater. Like, I like doing stand up in a theater. I think that is a bit more my vibe than, I don't know. The comedy clubs are great, but I don't know. I like fancy. That's it. I like fancy. Our end of year show, I was in a sketch, like Scott Thompson came, and from Kids in the Hall, he came, and I got to be in a sketch with him where he played the Queen and I was Lady Di. And that was amazing. So that was like not a stand-up moment, but a really fun moment to watch him and how he does sketch comedy and how he acts, and just his professionalism, like right when he hits the stage, it was like, amazing. Just how he turns, he's just, boom, he's on. And so that was very cool. Actually going to this, I was making fun of my vet conference experience, but it was kind of like, this is practice for being famous, because it was such a highly produced vet conference, and they had like Dan Levy on that stage, not at the same time, but at the same conference, and Terry Irwin and Robert Irwin. So it was like this professional, the room held 6,000 people. Did 6,000 people come to the talent show? No. But I think about 1,500 people came to the talent show, and it was highly, highly, highly produced. They had like judges over on one side, and like all the contestants were amazing. They all had stories. I was like, I'm on a reality show right now. Like, I don't care that I'm not. In my mind, I was like, yeah. So it was like, it felt like a rehearsal for fame. Very fun. Very, very fun.
I love that. And you know what? I was just thinking about, like when you were the story about being on stage with a famous stand-up comedian and acting with them. I think that is something that really, for me, has been helpful in taking that veneer away of anyone can do it. Like what you were talking about before, where stand-up is a job. And for those who are successful at it, they take it so seriously. Stand-up, comedy, improv, acting. When you actually get to see a great person do that, you go, there it is. The job and the work.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring. And I think it's been really helpful for me to see that, especially coming from a not acting school or theater school background, having not been exposed to that. Being like, there it is. There's the master at work.
Yeah. This is this thing I really want to do like a solo show one day, but like if I watch an amazing solo show, especially live, sometimes just on Netflix, I start crying at the end. It makes me cry. Like I just saw Alex Edelman's Just for Us, but I'll do this if I'm seeing Seth Meyers. Like I'll just start crying because I was like, I saw Hannah Gadsby live. I've seen Mike Birbiglia's show live, and I'll just start crying. I'll just be like, oh, that's perfect. And that's like, to me, I'm like, I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I just want to, like, it's my dream. Like, you know, and you have to say your dreams out loud, but I watch that, how it's just like this perfect arc. It's so funny. It's storytelling. It's acting. It's everything, you know? And I'm like, that's the thing. But, you know, then people will be like, oh, you know, Jacqueline Novak's just broke out. I'm like, she's worked on that show for 6 years. 6 years. She's incredible. I mean, yeah, I cried when I saw that too. But it's not like she just went and just did that and then Netflix was like, yeah, we'll put that on. Like, yeah.
There's such a, I think there's something about when artists, again, it's artists supporting other artists, right? Because there's so much empathy and understanding what goes into, again, the veneer's been pulled off. And I think about, like, it's such a bad analogy, but like when I get invited to a wedding, I am the best wedding guest. I will stay till you kick me out. I'm not a drinker, but like I'll stay, I'll party, I'll dance. I'm going to have the best time because I know that is my job as the wedding guest.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
The bride and groom or bride and bride or groom and groom or whoever are terrified that people aren't going to have a good time. And so I'm going to have a damn good time. And it's the same thing when I go to, like, for example, I just saw, like, she's a TikTok comedian, Laura Ramoso. I saw her, she was trying out some new material at the Comedy Bar. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking laugh so hard. And like a lot of people in that audience were people I knew from this community in the entertainment industry being like, yes, we are coming, we're supporting you, and we're going to fucking laugh. I mean, we're not going to like fake it. We're going to laugh at the funny parts that we find funny because we're here to support you. And what you're doing is really hard. And it's our job as fellow entertainers to support you and be the best goddamn audience member. I think it's so important.
Yeah. And to appreciate what goes into that, right?
Oh, God.
Or if they're just trying new jokes.
Yeah.
That's still hard because they're not, it's actually sometimes harder. Like if you have a set and you know everyone laughs, they laugh all at these points. Whereas if you're like, it's the only way in stand-up. It's the only way. You do the thing and see if people laugh. And then you're like, you have to go back, listen to your tape and be like, oh, why didn't they laugh? Do I need to just get rid of that? That's so hard. I've been doing that with some of my sets. Like they go from like, it was 6 minutes and now it's 3.5 and now it's better, but now I only have 3.5 and that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
You have to let go of some of those things. Some of it's just long setups, but some of it's like, that's not working. You need to get rid of it. Even if you think it's funny, you know, and I've seen stand-ups do this. It's mostly men. They'll say, no, it's men. It's all men. What am I saying? Men do this. That was a good joke. When people don't laugh, I'm like,
God's sakes.
No, it wasn't. It might be a good premise, but something's not working. So don't yell at the audience. They're telling you something's wrong. You either need to cut it, fix it, whatever. But yeah, it's not their fault that they didn't laugh. Like it's you, you know? So yeah, I try to do that.
It's the anger, right? And I think as scientists, when things go wrong, you're supposed to not get mad. You get curious, right? You get curious. You go, why, right? As opposed to like, this didn't work. Flip the tables. It's like, this didn't work. Ooh, let's figure out why. Get curious about it. Anger's so immature.
I have a joke about bridge that never works. And I tried it. I was doing a stand-up for like a cat rescue and it was kind of an older audience. I was like, first of all, it was about cats and bridge. I was like, this joke doesn't work in this crowd. It's never going to work. It didn't work. I still think it's really funny, but I'm like, oh, like the average age of the audience was like 60 to 70, mostly women, cat people. And it was a joke. I think it's not going to work. I don't know. Like, I'm not mad at them, but that's why I added it to my set. Cause I looked around and I was like, I'm going to try my bridge joke one more time. And then I was like, I got to retire my bridge joke. Yeah.
I think, you know, and I talk about this all the time with the podcast about when it's your stuff, there's like, again, it's so personal and it's so, again, like I always make this stupid analogy about like, if you're a table maker and somebody says, I don't like your table, Fine. They're not saying it about me, Janet. They're saying it about Janet's table. That's fine. There's this barrier that's there. It's a literal table. But like, if it's your comedy or if it's my acting and somebody's like, I don't find that funny or I don't find you talented, you're like, okay, so that's now my soul that you hit with an arrow. It's me.
You don't like me.
Yeah. Yes.
But then who cares?
I know. You're right.
Who cares? Mm-hmm. I mean,
who cares?
I don't know. If I'm at Yak Yaks and there's like a whole bunch of 20-year-olds, if I can make them laugh, I'm so happy. But I'm going to talk about night sweats and I'm going to make jokes about that. And that's because that's what I'm doing right now. And I think that's funny. And I'm having night sweats. I'm making jokes about night sweats. That's what I'm doing. Because also no one ever talks about it and no one makes comedy for women going through that. And I'm like, there's enough dick jokes. There's enough jokes about porn. I'm kind of tired of it. I'm going to talk about like what middle-aged women are going through and hope that those ladies find me. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see if they will or not.
Do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up this year?
Yes. I don't say congratulations because it's just a lottery, but I got into the Guelph Fringe and I'm very excited. So you can say congratulations if you want.
Yeah, but it's just blowing on my mouth. Congratulations.
Oh, you can say it. I just think it's funny because it's not, awesome. It's just all like it's a lottery based thing. And I tried for Toronto, Hamilton, and Guelph. I live in Guelph. I got into Guelph. I'm thrilled to get into Guelph because I feel like it's like enough pressure to make me produce. I'm going to do a solo show. It's enough pressure that I need to do that, but it's not so much pressure. Like, I don't know. It's kind of an intermediate amount of pressure. So I'm thrilled because it'll be just management wise, like living in Guelph and trying to do comedy in Toronto is challenging. And then everyone's like, why don't you move to Toronto? I'm like, because I live in a house. That's why I can't live in a house in Toronto. I don't know what to do about it. It's a complete, and I can't complain because I'm obviously very lucky and I'm not complaining. But for me to be like, I'm going to take my life and move it to Toronto, I will live in a condo and I have a huge dog and I can't. So I commute and complain about all that when other people are like, I don't even have an apartment, Sarah, so shut up. So I get it. But anyway, I'm happy to be doing it in my community. I have friends here. It'll be easier just to manage that. And then I can just focus on like the show and and I feel like it's a start, right? So
when is that?
August 8th till 11th. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I will be there 100%.
Amazing.
That sounds so great. And as soon as I know, because I follow all your socials, I'm sure you'll be posting it on your socials.
I will be posting a lot of on my socials. Yep. Yeah. I have a name. Do you want to hear the name?
Yes.
Unless I change it, but I'm calling it Stoppable.
Stoppable. Why?
Because, it's going to be about overcoming obstacles, and also because I think it's funny to say Sarah Boston is stoppable.
Because everyone these days is like, I'm unstoppable, and you're like, I'm not.
I am stoppable. I can definitely get things stopped.
So you have a podcast that I have been on and had the best time.
Because you're the best guest.
Oh, well, thank you. The feeling's mutual. Don't tell anyone else.
I won't tell them.
Would you like to tell everyone a bit about it?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's how I found you, so I'm grateful.
I definitely slid into your DMs.
Oh, I loved it. It was amazing. Kindred spirits. It's called Co-Medicine, and I love talking to healthcare professionals who are doing comedy. So whether it's improv or stand-up or whatever they're doing, because I'm fascinated by it. And I'm sure like you, like I found parallels of like people who are just like, no, this part of my brain, I ignored it for 25 years, but I kind of like that part of myself. And so that's been super cool. And also just seeing like the parallels, things that I thought only veterinarians dealt with. I'm like, oh, doctors, they have that too. I didn't know that. Like, so that's been cool. And I've met cool people. It's very fun. So it's called Co-Medicine. It's wherever you like to get your podcast. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's been, as you know, like it's just been fun, and I get to meet like the coolest people. So I'm like,
it's wonderful. Brilliant. You have the coolest guests. I'll put all the links in the show notes below.
Awesome.
Yeah, everyone go check it out. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice, more specific if you don't mind, towards people, like you were saying, who are in these careers and they're thinking, I want to seek out more comedy, more whimsy, that creative side of their brain.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what I hope for, I guess, this podcast and also the Co-Medicine podcast, is that it reaches someone who's like in their car and they're like, I always wanted to do improv. I always wanted to do stand-up. I just go do it. Like, nothing bad will happen. Only good can come of it. Even if you're terrible at it, it doesn't matter. And like, I think that's the thing with all the nerdy healthcare professionals. They're like, and I'm a bit like this, and I try to beat it out of myself. Like, I have to be good. What if I'm not good? Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it will do something to your brain. Improv changes your brain. It makes you better at your job, at your sciencey, nerdy lawyer. It will, even if you never do improv, you'll be better at speaking. You'll be better with your clients. You'll be better with your relationships. I know that sounds crazy, but I really believe that improv does that. It just does. It makes you listen. Like so anyway, I don't even care if it's like you want to paint, you want to pick up your violin, you want to do something. That part of your brain is atrophying. And you having more parts of your brain working makes you better at everything. I believe that. Like, I guess that's the opposite of my saying I'm going to be mediocre at everything. I think I'm a better veterinarian because I do comedy. And that probably sounds crazy, but I actually believe it. I'm like, oh no, I'm being more creative. I'm trying to think through my cases differently. I'm communicating with people differently. I don't take things so seriously. I really don't. Like, I can see the humor in something right away. I don't have to wait a year to look back and go, well, that was kind of funny. I'm like, no, that's actually funny now. It kind of sucks, but actually there's some humor also that I can see. So anyway, the reason I did it was because I didn't want to be like 65 and boring the shit out of people and going, I was pretty good at comedy. I think I could have been really good. I don't know how good I'm going to be. I might just be here forever. I might just be a rising star that never rises. I care and I don't care. That's it. So yeah, I would say just don't wait. Life is short. You never know what's going to happen. So just carve out some time and find that creative side of yourself.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Dr. Boston, for being my guest this week. If you are all interested in listening to another podcast, as we all are, we love podcasts, come on. Check out Dr. Boston's podcast, Co-Medicine. It is so awesome. I've binged the entire thing. My episode is on there, obviously, but she talks to such fascinating human beings. A lot of people in the comedy space who also have a career in healthcare. And, I absolutely love it. Massive congratulations. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.